If there's one thing that we know about Donald Trump, it's that he watches a lot of TV. He's never working and he's always sitting on his fat ass watching Fox. But today, it wasn't his favorite propaganda outlet that he was tuned into. It was the coverage around Pete Hegseth's war crimes, specifically what Mark Kelly had to say, because it is the only reason for what Donald Trump just did. Quitting on Pete Hegseth publicly, throwing him under the bus, breaking with him for the first time during his term in a press gaggle on Air Force One that is shaking up this administration and putting another huge crack in the fracturing MAGA coalition. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into what Trump had to say quitting on Hegseth, I want to start what I believe led him to get to that point, and it's what Mark Kelly had to say about Hegseth's illegal order right here.
Happening right now, the Washington Post reporting that Secretary Hegseth gave an order to kill everybody on one of those suspected drug boats during the first strike in September. Are you calling for U.S. service members to actively disobey orders like those?
Well, if orders are illegal, not only do they not have to follow them, they are legally required not to follow them.
Do you think that constitutes an illegal order?
I think there needs to be an investigation, and I hope that the reporting is not accurate. I care so much about the United States Navy and those service members. This was an operation involving the most professional members of the military, U.S. Navy SEALs, who I revere. I hope and pray that this is not true. But there needs to be an investigation by the Inspector General. Pete Hegseth fired many of the inspectors general in DOD. But who's ever left needs to investigate it. We're going to investigate it. I sit on the Armed Services Committee. We're going to have an investigation. We're going to have a public hearing. We're going to put these folks under oath, and we're going to find out what happened, and then there needs to be accountability.
Let me ask you.
Now, I certainly do not get the security briefings of a United States senator, so I can't say this with 100% certainty, but I read the reporting. I trust the reporting. The reporting is accurate. Pete Hegseth is a war criminal. I do not need to wait for Congress to tell me that. And the fact that Republicans, both in the House and the Senate, on the Armed Services Committee, are calling for these investigations, are moving forward with these investigations, that these are bipartisan investigations, tells me everything that I need to know. And also, Republicans, it had to rise to war crimes before you would start holding Pete Hegseth accountable and saying, maybe the guy on the third marriage and the fifth affair and the eighth illegitimate child and multiple allegations credibly against him, yet maybe this guy isn't the right fit to be the Secretary of Defense. How did it take war crimes for us to get to that point? That's besides the fact that, no, I do believe this reporting. It was an illegal order. Pete Hegseth is a war criminal, and good on Mark Kelly for continuing to call him out, no matter how much Donald Trump tries to move forward with this intimidation plan, because he thinks it's laughable. He thinks that's going to scare Mark Kelly? Really? Get the fuck out of here. That's just a ridiculous notion, and Mark Kelly made that very clear.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has personally threatened to recall you to active duty so that you can be court-martialed. Secretary Hegseth adding your video, quote, intentionally undercut good order and discipline. Did it?
I said something very simple and non-controversial, and Donald Trump said I should be hanged, executed, prosecuted. Pete Hegseth said I should be court-martialed. I mean, how ridiculous is this? We say follow the law, and this is their response. These are not serious people. And Kristen, this is meant to just intimidate us. We're sticking up for the Constitution here and the rule of law, and they're saying these folks should be executed for doing that. I mean, Pete Hegseth is not a serious person. He's unqualified for this job.
Now, if you watched the morning shows today, if you watched the Sunday morning shows, you saw a lot of Mark Kelly and Donald Trump, who is always tuning in to the Sunday morning shows, as was evidenced by something he said again about Tim Walz during this press gaggle, certainly tuned in. And I think he sees the building pressure. I think he sees Mark Kelly unafraid. And I think he at least knows that he does not need another set of scandals from a guy in Pete Hegseth who Trump picked to be the Secretary of Defense because he thought that this is a telegenic guy. He can go out there and communicate. He can rah-rah. He can, struggle to do a pull-up, and it'll make us look good. Now, of course, Pete Hegseth is not a good look for anybody, but Trump said that this guy would fire up the MAGA base. But now with Republicans turning on him, wanting investigations, do you think Donald Trump wants to deal with any more of this as his term falls apart? I don't think so. And as is the case with anyone who works for Donald Trump, is friends with Donald Trump, associates with Donald Trump, you are bound to get screwed over by Donald Trump. That is the reality that Pete Hegseth is waking up to.
On the Venezuela boat strike, if there were a second strike that killed people in the first strike, were you thinking that would be illegal?
I don't know that happened. And Pete said he did not want them. He didn't even know what people were talking about. So we'll look into it. But no, I wouldn't have wanted the second strike. The first strike was very legal. It was fine.
Midas Touch responded to this quote from Trump, writing, "Preparing to throw Hegseth under the bus." Now, a lot of people are speculating, and I agree, that Trump's saying, well, I wouldn't have wanted a second strike. I didn't say to do that. I'm the no new wars guy. The initial strike, killing innocent fishermen, yeah, that was just preventative. That's not me launching an armed conflict, me saying that all the airspace around Venezuela needs to be shut down because I'm threatening them. Oh, that's not me launching into a war. I'm just being a strong guy. Trump is trying to make a little bit of distance between him and Hegseth in the media. He wants people to think that, oh, well, two strikes, what Pete did is too far. I wouldn't have done that. That was his decision. He wanted that carried out. There's a lot of pushing of the blame to Pete Hegseth. This is the clearest break that Trump has made. And he's just quitting on him in terms of his strategy around this bombing campaign in international waters. Trump was backing him up before, saying that this was justified, this was important. Remember, Trump was posting these videos. He was sharing the criminal bombings. Donald Trump was posting his own war crimes. But now, after some backlash, after Republicans saying we need to investigate this, and after a very direct campaign by Mark Kelly to bring attention to this, and good on Mark Kelly, Donald Trump's starting to say, I don't really like how they're talking about me on TV. Because again, it's always about TV. Let's be honest, people. And he's saying, I'm going to put there's a little line in the sand right there, and that's Pete. Pete did that. I wouldn't have done that. That was Pete's call. Oh, now you're talking about war crimes? That was on Pete. We're doing another round of investigations. That was on Pete. He is clearly breaking with him. He's opening the door to throw him under the bus. He's opening the door to firing someone. I think Donald Trump wants some heat off him right now. And I think in a moment in which he is seeing the lowest approval rating of his presidency, he potentially has another devastating election loss coming up in Tennessee. Shout out to Afton Bain on Tuesday. I think Donald Trump is waking up to the fact that maybe a little shakeup might help him, right? Maybe that's a little distraction. Maybe that's something to feed the media. Maybe that's a look over here. Don't pay attention to Epstein. Don't pay attention to the economy. Talk about Pete Hegseth. It was Pete Hegseth's fault. That's what it was. Donald Trump fired a lot of people in his first administration, and a lot of people resigned. There was a lot of turnover. It's been relatively stable for Trump, right? The MAGA has been pretty locked in, at least in his administration. In Congress, we're seeing resignations. We're seeing threats of resignations for these strikes. This is one of the issues that has Republican lawmakers saying, I don't know if I want to be here. I got to defend this guy. I don't know if I want to be here. So is Donald Trump thinking to himself right now, new Secretary of Defense on one hand, other hand, keep the drunk idiot doing bar crawls on Wednesday nights and killing people illegally, or so resignation, Republicans resign if I keep Pete Hegseth and then I lose the House, and then the more investigations come, or just new Secretary of Defense. I think that Trump would probably lean towards new Secretary of Defense and getting rid of Pete. I don't think he has a lot of loyalty to Pete Hegseth. I think that's where Donald Trump is leaning right now. I wouldn't be surprised. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this was because of Mark Kelly on television today. That's what drives a lot of Donald Trump's decision-making. So on that note, I think we need to hear more from Mark Kelly, who was just going off on Trump.
Well, first, let me start by saying we said something very simple and non-controversial, and the President of the United States said, hang them, execute them, prosecute them. In my case, Secretary Hegseth said, prosecute him under the Uniform Code of Military Justice for, by the way, reciting the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's obviously ridiculous, but this is an attempt to silence me, to get me to not hold this administration accountable. We have a president who doesn't understand the Constitution, who installed an unqualified Secretary of Defense. I cannot think of a Secretary of Defense in the history of our country that is less qualified than Pete Hegseth. He should not be in this position. He should have been fired after Signalgate, and now he should be fired again for this, if this is accurate. So he's not going to get me to back down. But what he is doing is sending a very chilling message across our entire nation, not only in the military, but the civilian workforce. Who's going to speak up and say anything if they see something that's unlawful or see something waste, fraud, and abuse? Why would anyone speak out if they can go and try to prosecute a U.S. senator?
Is it happening?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was notified. I was notified about this through a tweet, the same tweet that you saw. And that demonstrates how unserious this administration is. They care more about the publicity about this than the process or the law. I haven't been notified by the Navy.
By the Navy or the FBI? So no court martial?
We got something from the FBI, but the thing we received from the FBI, just like the president saying that we should be hanged, the thing we received from the FBI is more intimidation.
What did it say?
Well, it just said there was no point of contact. It had something about coming in for an interview. And the question here should be, why did the FBI decide to do this? Or do you think maybe the president told the FBI director to go after these 6 members of Congress?
I expect to be hearing a lot more from Mark Kelly. And funny enough, very soon I'm going to be doing an interview with Mark Kelly. So actually, if there's anything specifically you'd like to see me ask him, feel free to DM me on Instagram, on Twitter, to drop a comment below. There are a lot of questions I'm going to have for Senator Kelly. I'm also just going to need to shake his hand and tell him he's a badass, because he is. But this is the energy that Democrats need, and I want to see more of it. We're going to be talking about it and highlighting it on this show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.